Charlotte Whitmore had everything money could buy, but she was suffocating in a world of fake smiles and calculated friendships, until the night her throat began to close at her own family's charity gala. In those terrifying moments when her breath slipped away, only one person in that glittering ballroom full of society's elite noticed she was dying. Marcus Reed was just a waiter serving hors d'oeuvres, but his steady hands and quick thinking would save her life and ignite a love story that would shake the foundations of Boston high society. What Charlotte didn't know was that her grateful heart was about to collide with a world that would never accept their love, where her own father would become her greatest obstacle, and where a vindictive ex-fiancé was already plotting to destroy them both. The woman who had everything was about to discover that sometimes love requires losing it all. If you're watching this incredible love story unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're watching from. Because Charlotte and Marcus's journey is just beginning, and you won't want to miss what happens next. The crystal chandelier cast warm light over the hotel ballroom, making everything sparkle like a fairy tale. Charlotte Whitmore smoothed her navy silk dress and tried to smile at the right moments. Around her, the Whitmore Foundation Gala buzzed with conversations about charity donations and vacation homes. She nodded politely as Mrs. Henderson talked about her new yacht, but Charlotte's mind wandered. These events always felt the same faces, the same small talk, the same feeling that she was playing a role in someone else's story. "Excuse me?" Charlotte said softly, stepping away from the group. She needed a moment to breathe. The dessert table stood near the back wall, away from the crowd. Perfect. Charlotte walked over, grateful for the quiet space. Tiny chocolate tarts and delicate pastries lined the white tablecloth. Everything looked beautiful, like art you could eat. She picked up a small almond tart and took a bite. It was sweet and rich, with a hint of something she couldn't quite place. Probably some fancy spice the chef used. Across the room, Marcus Reed balanced a silver tray of appetizers on his palm. He'd been working at the Grandview Hotel for 2 years now, and he knew how to move through crowds without disturbing anyone. His black vest and white shirt were pressed perfectly, and his shoes were polished to a shine. Marcus had learned to notice things. Which guests wanted to chat? Which ones preferred to be left alone? Which ones said please and thank you? And which ones looked right through him like he wasn't there? He was making his way toward the kitchen when something caught his attention. A woman in navy blue stood by the dessert table. Her hand was at her throat, and she was clearing it softly. Once, then twice. Marcus paused. He'd seen this before. The woman took another small bite of her pastry. She swallowed and cleared her throat again, harder this time. Her other hand went to her neck. Marcus set his tray on a nearby stand and moved closer, keeping his steps casual. The woman was Charlotte Whitmore. He recognized her from the foundation photos in the hotel lobby. Her father owned half the city, but right now she looked scared. Charlotte felt her throat getting tight. The air seemed thicker somehow, harder to breathe. She touched her neck, confused. What was happening? She tried to swallow, but it felt like her throat was closing. A small wheeze escaped her lips. Then another. "Ma'am?" A gentle voice spoke beside her. "Are you okay?" Charlotte turned to see a waiter with kind brown eyes. He was tall, with broad shoulders and gentle hands that he held steady at his sides. I can't." Charlotte's voice came out rough and thin. "My throat feels—" "Can you tell me what you just ate?" Marcus asked, his voice calm and sure. The almond tart." Charlotte's breathing was getting harder. She could feel her lips starting to tingle. Marcus nodded. I think you're having an allergic reaction. We need to get you help right now. He didn't panic. He didn't shout. Instead, he caught the eye of the security guard by the door and made a quick hand signal. The guard understood immediately and spoke into his radio. Ma'am, I need you to sit down, Marcus said, guiding Charlotte to a chair near the wall. Try to breathe slowly. In through your nose, out through your mouth. Charlotte's heart was racing. She could feel her face starting to swell. I've never... I know, Marcus said. Sometimes these things happen without warning, but you're going to be okay. Help is coming. The security guard appeared beside them. EpiPen's in the medical kit, he said to Marcus. Good. Get it. Charlotte looked up at Marcus with wide, frightened eyes. I don't understand. I'm not allergic to anything. Allergies can develop at any time, Marcus explained, staying close. The tart probably had tree nuts in it. Sometimes they hide them in the flour or the flavoring. The guard returned with a small, yellow device. Marcus took it without hesitation, removing the safety cap. This is going to pinch for a second, he told Charlotte. But it's going to help you breathe. He pressed the EpiPen into her thigh, right through her dress, and held it there for 10 seconds. Charlotte gasped as the medication hit her system. Just breathe, Marcus said softly. That's it. You're doing great. Within minutes, the paramedics arrived. They moved quickly but gently, checking Charlotte's breathing and blood pressure. The EpiPen had worked. Her throat was opening up again, and the swelling was going down. You saved her life, one of the paramedics said to Marcus. Quick thinking. Marcus just nodded. He stayed beside Charlotte as they helped her to a wheelchair. We're going to take you to the quiet lounge upstairs, the paramedic explained. Just to make sure everything settles down okay. As they wheeled Charlotte toward the elevator, she reached out and caught Marcus's hand. Her fingers were still shaky, but her grip was strong. Thank you, she whispered, looking right into his eyes. Thank you for seeing me. Marcus squeezed her hand gently. I'm glad you're okay. The elevator doors closed, and the ballroom music continued playing. Most of the guests hadn't even noticed what happened. But in that quiet moment, something had shifted. Charlotte Whitmore had looked into the eyes of Marcus Reed, and both of them had seen something they weren't expecting. Something real. 10 minutes later, Charlotte sat in the hotel's private lounge, feeling shaky but alive. The paramedics had checked her over and said she was going to be fine. The EpiPen had done its job, and the allergic reaction was fading. But she couldn't stop thinking about the waiter who had saved her. The lounge was quiet, decorated with soft chairs and warm lighting. Much better than the crowded ballroom downstairs. Charlotte had kicked off her heels and tucked her feet under her on the couch. A soft knock came at the door. Come in, Charlotte called. Marcus stepped inside, looking slightly uncomfortable. He'd taken off his service jacket and was carrying a bottle of water. I thought you might be thirsty, he said, holding out the water. The paramedics said it's important to stay hydrated. That's very thoughtful. Charlotte accepted the bottle gratefully. Please, sit down. I feel like I should know your name, considering you just saved my life. Marcus hesitated for a moment, then sat in the chair across from her. Marcus Reed. Charlotte Whitmore, but you probably already knew that. I did. Marcus smiled slightly. Your picture's in the lobby. Charlotte laughed, and it felt good to laugh. That's probably not my best angle. Hotel photography never is. I think you look fine, Marcus said, then caught himself. I mean, sorry, I shouldn't. It's okay. Charlotte leaned forward. Marcus, What just happened to me? Have you seen it before? Marcus nodded. My sister's a nurse. I've been around medical emergencies, and I took a first aid class when I started working here. The hotel requires it. You were so calm. I was terrified, but you made me feel safe. Marcus looked down at his hands. I just did what needed to be done. No, Charlotte said firmly. You did more than that. You saw that I was in trouble when no one else did. You acted fast. You stayed with me. She paused. You cared. Before Marcus could respond, there was another knock. The security supervisor, Ms. Keene, stepped in. She was a middle-aged woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. Ms. Whitmore, I'm glad to see you're feeling better, Ms. Keene said. Reed, I need to get a statement from you about what happened. Marcus stood up. Of course. Ms. Keene pulled out a small notebook. Walk me through it. Marcus explained everything step by step. How he noticed Charlotte having trouble breathing, how he identified the allergic reaction, how he called for help and administered the EpiPen. You did everything correctly, Ms. Keene said, making notes. The hotel appreciates your quick thinking. But then her tone shifted slightly. Just remember, Reed, our policy about guest boundaries. You did the right thing tonight, but going forward, keep interactions professional. Marcus nodded. I understand. Charlotte felt a flash of annoyance. The man had literally saved her life, and they were talking about boundaries? Ms. Keene closed her notebook. Ms. Whitmore, is there anything else you need this evening? Actually, yes. Charlotte looked at Marcus. I'd like to buy you coffee tomorrow, to say thank you properly. Marcus blinked, clearly surprised. He glanced at Ms. Keene, who was watching him carefully. That's very kind of you, Marcus said slowly. But you don't need to? I want to, Charlotte said. Please, 1 cup of coffee, nothing fancy, just thank you. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Charlotte could see him thinking it over, weighing something in his mind. Finally, he nodded. Okay, 1 cup of coffee. Ms. Keene's expression didn't change, but Charlotte caught the slight tightening around her eyes. Wonderful, Charlotte said, feeling lighter than she had all evening. The cafe here in the hotel? Tomorrow morning, around 10? I'll be there, Marcus said. As Ms. Keene and Marcus left the lounge, Charlotte settled back into the couch. For the first time in months, she was looking forward to something. Not a charity event, or a business meeting, or another dinner where she had to smile and make small talk. Just coffee. With someone who had seen her when she needed help most. Someone who had cared enough to act. The next morning, Charlotte walked into the hotel cafe wearing jeans and a simple white sweater. No designer dress, no carefully styled hair, no jewelry except for small pearl earrings. She felt more like herself than she had in weeks. The cafe was quiet, with only a few guests reading newspapers or checking their phones. Soft jazz played in the background, and the smell of fresh coffee filled the air. Marcus was already there, sitting at a corner table. He'd changed out of his uniform into dark jeans and a blue button-down shirt. He looked younger, more relaxed. Hi, Charlotte said, sliding into the seat across from him. Hi. Marcus smiled, and Charlotte noticed it was the first real smile she'd seen from him. How are you feeling? Much better, a little tired, but good. Charlotte picked up the menu. Have you eaten? I grabbed something earlier, but please, order whatever you want. They ordered coffee and pastries, carefully checking the ingredients this time. When the waitress left, uncomfortable silence settled between them. Can I ask you something? Charlotte said. Sure. Last night, when you saw me having trouble, what made you notice? There were probably 100 people in that room. Marcus thought for a moment. I guess I've learned to watch for things that don't look right. In this job, you see a lot. You learn to read people. What did you read about me? That you were scared and trying not to show it. Marcus met her eyes. I know what that looks like. There was something in his voice that made Charlotte want to know more. Do you like working at the hotel? It's a good job, steady pay, decent benefits. The people I work with are mostly good. But, Marcus smiled slightly, but it wasn't exactly my dream. What was your dream? Cooking. I went to culinary school for 2 years. I was going to be a chef. Marcus turned his coffee cup in his hands. But life happened. What kind of life? Marcus hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. My sister Naomi had a baby when she was 19. The father took off. She was trying to work and go to nursing school and take care of a newborn all at the same time. She needed help. So you left school. So I left school. Got a job with steady hours so I could watch my nephew Malik when Naomi was in class or at work. Marcus shrugged. Family comes first. Charlotte felt something warm and tight in her chest. How old is Malik now? 7. Smart as anything. Wants to be a superhero when he grows up. And Naomi? She's a nurse at City General now. She's amazing at it. Malik's doing great in school. Everything worked out. But you gave up your dream. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Maybe I just found a different one. Their pastries arrived. A blueberry muffin for Charlotte and a chocolate croissant for Marcus. Charlotte broke off a piece of her muffin and tasted it carefully. All good? Marcus asked, watching her with gentle concern. All good. Charlotte smiled. So, tell me about Naomi. What's she like? Tough. Smart. Funny. She doesn't let anyone push her around, but she's the first person to help if you need it. Marcus's face lit up when he talked about his sister. She raised me as much as our parents did. When our mom died, Naomi was only 16, but she stepped up. She always steps up. And your dad? He drives a truck. Long hauls, so he's gone a lot. But he's a good man. Taught us to work hard and treat people right. Charlotte found herself really listening, not just waiting for her turn to talk like she did at most social events. There was something about the way Marcus spoke, honest and direct, without trying to impress anyone. What about you? Marcus asked. What's it like being Charlotte Whitmore? Charlotte laughed, but there wasn't much humor in it. Complicated. Lonely sometimes. Lonely? You're surrounded by people all the time. That's the problem. I'm surrounded by people who want something from me. Access to my father, donations to their causes, connections to other wealthy people. Sometimes I wonder if anyone would bother talking to me if my last name was Smith. Marcus studied her face. That sounds hard. It is hard, but I shouldn't complain. I have advantages most people don't have. Having advantages doesn't mean you can't feel lonely, Marcus said quietly. Charlotte looked at him in surprise. Most people don't see it that way. Most people haven't spent much time thinking about it. They talked for another hour about books, music, and movies. Marcus liked jazz and old blues records. Charlotte loved mystery novels and terrible reality TV shows. Marcus had never been to Europe. Charlotte had been there 6 times, but had never been on a city bus. When it was time to go, they walked out together. The morning sun was bright, making everything look clean and new. Thank you, Charlotte said as they reached the hotel entrance. This was really nice? Yeah, it was. Marcus paused. Charlotte, about what Ms. Keene said last night. About boundaries? Yeah, I don't want to cause any problems, for you or for me. Charlotte felt a little flutter of panic. Are you saying we can't be friends? I'm saying we should be careful. Your world and mine, they don't usually mix. Maybe they should. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Maybe they should, he agreed softly. As Charlotte walked to her car, She felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Not for anything specific, just hope that maybe there were still good people in the world. People who would notice if she was in trouble. People who would stay with her until she was safe. People who might want to know her for reasons that had nothing to do with her last name. Behind her, Marcus watched until her car disappeared around the corner. Then he went back into the hotel, past the lobby with its formal photographs and expensive furniture, back to the kitchen where Chef Alvarez was already prepping for lunch. "Everything okay?" the chef asked, looking up from his cutting board. "Yeah," Marcus said, tying his apron. "Everything's fine." But as he started washing vegetables, Marcus couldn't stop thinking about Charlotte's laugh. Real and surprised, like she'd forgotten she knew how to do it. Maybe Miss Keene was right about boundaries. Maybe he should be more careful. But for the first time in a long while, Marcus found himself looking forward to something beyond just getting through the day. 3 days passed before Charlotte worked up the courage to return to the hotel. She told herself she was just going to lunch, nothing more. But as she walked through the lobby, her eyes automatically searched for a familiar face. She didn't see Marcus anywhere. The hotel restaurant was busy with the lunch crowd. Charlotte chose a table by the window and ordered a salad, picking at her food while watching the staff move efficiently between tables. Still no sign of Marcus. "Excuse me," she said when her waitress came by. "Is Marcus Reed working today?" The young woman looked confused. "Marcus? Oh, you mean from the event staff. He works in catering, not the restaurant. He might be in the kitchen." Charlotte nodded, feeling foolish. Of course he wouldn't be serving lunch in the restaurant. She was about to ask the waitress to pass along a message when her phone buzzed. A text from her father. "Lunch tomorrow. Important business to discuss." Charlotte sighed. Edward Whitmore's important business usually meant another charity board he wanted her to join, or another social event where she needed to make an appearance. She loved her father, but sometimes she felt like a chess piece. He moved around the board of Boston High Society. As she was paying her check, she noticed a small piece of paper tucked under her water glass. The waitress must have left it when Charlotte wasn't looking. She unfolded it carefully. In neat handwriting, it said, "Thank you for the coffee. M." Charlotte smiled despite herself. He'd been here after all. The next afternoon, Charlotte sat across from her father in his downtown office. Edward Whitmore was a tall man with silver hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He'd built the family business from the small company his father left him into a real estate empire worth hundreds of millions. "Graham stopped by yesterday," Edward said, not bothering with small talk. Charlotte's stomach tightened. Graham Voss had been her fiancé until 6 months ago, when she'd finally admitted to herself that she felt nothing for him beyond mild friendship. The breakup had been civilized but awkward, especially since Graham worked as an image consultant for several of her father's companies. "What did Graham want?" "He's concerned about you. Says you've been acting differently since the gala incident." "The gala incident?" Charlotte repeated. "You mean when I almost died from an allergic reaction?" Edward's expression softened slightly. "I know it was scary, sweetheart. I'm grateful that young man was there to help. But Graham thinks you might be fixated on what happened." "Fixated?" "He thinks you might be feeling some kind of misplaced gratitude toward the waiter, that you might be romanticizing the whole thing." Charlotte felt heat rise in her cheeks. "I had coffee with him once, to say thank you." "I know, and that was kind of you. But Graham's worried that this person might try to take advantage of your gratitude." "Take advantage how?" Edward leaned forward. "Charlotte, you're worth $50 million on paper. More if you count future inheritance. There are people who would see that as an opportunity." "Marcus isn't like that." "How do you know? You've met him twice." Charlotte wanted to argue, but she couldn't explain how she knew. It was something in the way Marcus had looked at her, the way he'd stayed calm when she was scared, the way he'd talked about his family. But she knew her father would just see those as signs of a skilled manipulator. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" Charlotte said finally. "I'm asking you to be careful. Don't let gratitude cloud your judgment." Edward's voice was gentle, but firm. "This family has worked hard for what we have. We can't afford to make mistakes." Charlotte nodded, but inside she felt a familiar weight settling on her shoulders. The weight of being Edward Whitmore's daughter, of having to consider every friendship through the lens of money and social position. "There's something else," Edward continued. "The Ashworth Foundation Gala is next week. It's important that you attend. Graham has offered to escort you." "Dad?" "As friends, of course. But it would show a united front, stability, the kind of image that's good for business." Charlotte closed her eyes. This was her life. Events and appearances and images. Always images. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'll go." But as she left her father's office, Charlotte made a decision. She was going to see Marcus one more time. Not because of gratitude or romance or anything complicated, because she'd felt like herself when she talked to him. And she'd forgotten what that felt like. That evening, Charlotte parked across the street from the hotel and waited. She felt ridiculous, like a teenager with a crush. But she'd called the hotel and learned that Marcus worked until 6, so here she was at 6:15, hoping to catch him leaving. She was about to give up when she saw him come out the employee entrance. He'd changed out of his uniform into jeans and a gray hoodie. He looked tired, but walked with the easy confidence she remembered. Charlotte got out of her car and crossed the street, her heart beating faster with each step. "Marcus?" He turned, surprised. "Charlotte, what are you doing here?" "I was hoping to run into you. Do you have a minute?" Marcus glanced around the busy sidewalk, then nodded toward a small park across the street. "Sure, let's get out of the foot traffic." They found a bench under a large oak tree. The evening was warm, and families were playing on the nearby playground. It felt normal, peaceful. "How are you feeling?" Marcus asked. "Any more reactions?" "No, I'm fine. I actually wanted to thank you again, and to ask you something." "Okay." Charlotte took a breath. "Would you like to have dinner sometime? Nothing fancy. Just dinner." Marcus was quiet for so long that Charlotte started to worry she'd made a mistake. Finally, he spoke. "Charlotte, I need to be honest with you. My supervisor talked to me yesterday. She reminded me about the hotel's policy on fraternizing with guests." "Fraternizing?" "Getting too friendly, dating, that kind of thing." Marcus met her eyes. "If I'm going to keep my job, I need to be careful." Charlotte felt a flash of anger. "That's ridiculous. You saved my life." "I know, and I'm glad I was there. But the hotel has rules for a reason. They don't want staff taking advantage of guests or guests filing complaints about unwanted attention." "Is that what you think this is? Unwanted attention?" "No," Marcus said quickly. "That's not what I think at all. But I have to consider how it looks to other people." Charlotte stared at the playground, watching a father push his daughter on the swings. The little girl was laughing, completely free and happy. "Can I tell you something?" Charlotte said. "Go ahead." "I've been going to charity galas and business dinners since I was 16. I've met hundreds of men who wanted to date me. Politicians, lawyers, business owners, trust fund babies. All of them perfectly appropriate according to my father. But I never felt safe with any of them, not really safe." Charlotte turned to look at Marcus. "I felt safe with you. From the first moment, when I couldn't breathe and you were the only person who saw that something was wrong." Marcus was quiet, processing her words. "I'm not asking for anything complicated," Charlotte continued. "I'm just asking if you'd like to have dinner with someone who thinks you're a good person. Someone who would like to get to know you better. And if people talk, let them talk." Marcus smiled slightly. "You say that like it's easy." "Maybe it is. Maybe we're making it harder than it needs to be." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the families in the park. Charlotte noticed that Marcus had strong hands, with a small scar across his knuckles. Working hands. "There's a diner about 10 blocks from here," Marcus said finally. "O'Malley's. Nothing fancy, but the food's good." "Sounds perfect. Tomorrow night, 7 o'clock? I'll be there." As they stood to leave, Marcus hesitated. "Charlotte, I need you to understand something. I'm not going to be your project." "What do you mean?" "I mean, I'm not some guy from the wrong side of town who needs to be saved or fixed or educated. I know who I am. I like who I am." Charlotte felt a flash of respect for him. "Good. I wouldn't want you any other way." Marcus studied her face for a moment, then nodded. "Okay then. O'Malley's tomorrow at 7. As Charlotte walked back to her car, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She was going to have dinner with Marcus Reed, and for once in her life, she wasn't going to worry about what anyone else thought. Behind her, Marcus watched until she was safely in her car. Then he pulled out his phone and called his sister. "Naomi? It's me. Are you busy? I need to talk to someone." "You asked her to dinner?" Naomi Reed set down her coffee cup and stared at her brother. "Marcus, are you crazy?" They were sitting in Naomi's small kitchen while 7-year-old Malik did homework at the dining room table. The apartment was modest but clean, with photos of family and Malik's artwork covering the refrigerator. "It was her idea, actually," Marcus said. "Even worse. You don't think she has some kind of savior complex? Rich girl wants to help the poor waiter? It's not like that." "How do you know?" Marcus thought about Charlotte's face when she'd talked about feeling safe, about the way she'd really listened when he told her about leaving culinary school, about how she'd looked in the park, nervous but determined. "I just know," he said. Naomi shook her head. "Marcus, you're my baby brother, and I love you. But sometimes you see the good in people when you should be seeing the red flags." "What red flags?" "She's white. She's rich. She lives in a completely different world from us." Naomi leaned forward. "What happens when her family finds out? What happens when the hotel finds out? What happens when she gets bored and moves on to the next charity case?" "She's not like that." "How do you know? You've talked to her twice." Marcus didn't have a good answer for that. He just knew that something about Charlotte felt real in a way that nothing had for a long time. "Malik?" Naomi called. "How's that math homework coming?" "Almost done, Mom." Malik looked up from his worksheets. "Uncle Marcus, are you dating someone?" Marcus and Naomi both laughed despite the tension. "Maybe," Marcus said. "Why?" "Because you look different. Happy different." "Out of the mouths of babes," Naomi muttered. She looked at her brother seriously. "Marcus, I want you to be happy. You know that, right? You've given up so much for Malik and me." "I didn't give up anything. I made choices. Either way, you deserve good things. I just don't want you to get hurt." Marcus reached across the table and squeezed his sister's hand. "I'll be careful." "Promise me something," Naomi said. "Promise me you won't change who you are for her. Don't try to be someone you're not." "I promise." But as Marcus drove home to his own small apartment, he wondered if being careful was even possible. Charlotte Whitmore was already under his skin in a way that felt dangerous and wonderful at the same time. The next evening, Charlotte changed clothes 3 times before settling on dark jeans and a simple blue sweater. She wanted to look nice, but not overdressed for a neighborhood diner. O'Malley's was exactly what she'd expected. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, and the smell of burgers and coffee in the air. It was crowded, but not fancy, the kind of place where people came for comfort, food, and conversation. Marcus was already there, sitting in a corner booth. He stood when he saw her, and Charlotte felt that same flutter of awareness she'd experienced the first time she really looked at him. "Hi," he said, smiling. "You found it okay?" "GPS is a wonderful thing." Charlotte slid into the booth across from him. "This place is great. How long have you been coming here?" "Since I was a kid. My dad used to bring Naomi and me here on Sundays after church. The owner, Mrs. O'Malley, always gave us extra pie." As if summoned by his words, an older woman with gray hair and a warm smile appeared at their table. "Marcus Reed," she said, hands on her hips. "You haven't been in here for weeks." "Hi, Mrs. O'Malley. I've been working a lot." Marcus gestured to Charlotte. "This is my friend Charlotte." "Well, any friend of Marcus is a friend of mine. You two want coffee to start?" They ordered coffee and spent a few minutes looking at the menu. Charlotte was surprised by how relaxed she felt. No one was staring at them or whispering. They were just two people having dinner. "The meatloaf's good," Marcus said. "So is the fish and chips." "What are you having?" "Probably the burger. I'm a simple man." Charlotte smiled. "Simple isn't a bad thing." They ordered food and talked easily while they waited. Marcus told her about growing up in the neighborhood, about playing basketball at the local courts and getting in trouble for climbing the big elm tree in the park. Charlotte found herself laughing more than she had in months. "What about you?" Marcus asked. What was little Charlotte like? Serious. Too serious, probably. I had piano lessons and French lessons and writing lessons. My father wanted me to be accomplished. Are you? Accomplished? I can play Chopin and ask for directions in French and ride a horse without falling off. Whether that makes me accomplished? I'm not sure. Their food arrived, and they ate slowly, not wanting the evening to end. Mrs. O'Malley stopped by their table twice to refill their coffee and ask if everything was okay. Other customers nodded hello to Marcus, clearly glad to see him. You're popular here, Charlotte observed. Small neighborhood. Everyone knows everyone. Marcus paused. Is that weird for you? Not having that. A little. But good weird. I like seeing you with people who've known you forever. Why? Because it means you're really the person I think you are. Good people don't fake it for 20 years in their own neighborhood. Marcus looked surprised by her directness. What kind of person do you think I am? Kind. Loyal. Someone who keeps his promises. Charlotte met his eyes. Someone who notices when people need help. That's a lot to read into one coffee date. Sometimes you can tell a lot about someone from how they handle a crisis. They were interrupted by the arrival of dessert, apple pie that Mrs. O'Malley insisted was on the house. So, Marcus said, taking a bite of pie. Tell me about the real Charlotte, not the accomplished one, the one who watches terrible reality TV. Charlotte laughed. The real Charlotte is probably pretty boring. Try me. Okay, I love rainy days. I read mystery novels until 2 a.m. I make the world's worst scrambled eggs. I cry during dog food commercials. I've never changed a tire or done my own laundry. Never? We have people for that. Charlotte felt her cheeks warm. I know how that sounds. It sounds honest. I want to learn, though, normal things, like how to cook something besides cereal and how to take the subway without getting lost. Marcus grinned. I could teach you to cook. Really? Really, nothing fancy, but I know my way around a kitchen. Charlotte felt something warm and bright bloom in her chest. I'd like that. As they prepared to leave, Mrs. O'Malley came by one more time. You come back soon, she told Charlotte. Both of you. And Marcus, bring that nephew of yours around. I haven't seen Malik in ages. Outside the diner, they walked slowly toward Charlotte's car. The evening was warm, and the streetlights cast soft pools of yellow light on the sidewalk. Thank you, Charlotte said. This was perfect. Even though it wasn't fancy? Especially because it wasn't fancy. Charlotte hesitated. Marcus, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you worried about what people will think? About us, I mean. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Honestly? Yes. But not for the reasons you might think. What reasons? I'm worried that you'll realize I can't give you the life you're used to. I'm worried that your family will make things difficult for you. I'm worried that my job will become a problem. Marcus stopped walking and turned to face her. But I'm not worried about us, about who we are when we're together. Charlotte felt her heart skip. Good, because neither am I. They'd reached her car. Charlotte turned to say goodbye, and for a moment they stood very close, looking at each other in the streetlight. Can I see you again? Marcus asked quietly. Yes, Charlotte said. Definitely yes. As she drove home, Charlotte couldn't stop smiling. She'd had dinner with Marcus Reed, and it had been wonderful. Simple and real and wonderful. She was so lost in thought that she almost didn't notice the black car following her until she was pulling into her driveway. Graham's car. Charlotte sighed and parked, waiting as Graham got out of his BMW and walked toward her. Hi, Charlotte. We need to talk. Graham Voss looked as polished as ever in his expensive suit and perfectly styled hair. But there was something sharp in his eyes that Charlotte had never noticed during their engagement. It's late, Graham, Charlotte said, getting out of her car. Can't this wait until tomorrow? I don't think it should. Graham followed her up the steps to her townhouse. May I come in? Charlotte hesitated, then unlocked her front door. Fine, but make it quick. Her townhouse was elegant but comfortable, with soft lighting and family photos scattered around the living room. Graham sat on the leather sofa like he belonged there, which irritated Charlotte more than it should have. Your father is worried about you, Graham began. He already talked to me himself. And apparently it didn't help. Graham leaned forward. Charlotte, what are you doing? Having dinner with a friend. A friend? Graham's voice took on the tone he used when he was managing a client's reputation crisis. A hotel waiter who sees an opportunity to get close to the Whitmore fortune? Charlotte felt anger flash through her. That's not what this is. How do you know? What do you really know about this man? I know he saved my life. I know he's kind and honest and hardworking. You know what he's told you. Charlotte, I've seen this before. Wealthy women who think they can save someone from a lower social class. It never ends well. I'm not trying to save anyone. Graham stood up and started pacing, the way he did when he was building to his main point. Let me tell you what I see. I see a man who was smart enough to recognize an allergic reaction and position himself as your rescuer. I see someone who's now playing on your gratitude and your need to rebel against your father's expectations. That's ridiculous. Is it? Think about it, Charlotte. What are the chances that out of all the staff at that hotel, the one person who happened to notice your medical emergency was an attractive single man your age? Charlotte stared at him. Are you suggesting Marcus somehow caused my allergic reaction? I'm suggesting that people in the service industry learn to read situations. They learn to recognize opportunities. Get out! Graham looked surprised. Charlotte, get out of my house, now. I'm trying to protect you. No, you're trying to control me, just like you did when we were engaged. Charlotte walked to the front door and opened it. I said, get out. Graham straightened his tie and walked toward the door, but he paused in front of her. This won't end well, Charlotte. When it falls apart, don't say I didn't warn you. After he left, Charlotte locked the door and leaned against it, shaking with anger. She pulled out her phone and typed a text message to Marcus. Dinner tomorrow? My treat this time. His response came back quickly. I'd like that. Where? Charlotte thought for a moment, then typed, surprise me, somewhere you love. Deal. Pick you up at 7? Charlotte hesitated. Letting Marcus pick her up felt like crossing a line somehow, moving from casual friendship into something more intentional. But maybe it was time to cross some lines. Yes, 2247 Beacon Street. See you then. Charlotte set down her phone and smiled despite her anger at Graham. Tomorrow, she was going to let Marcus Reed show her his world, and she was going to stop caring what anyone else thought about it. The next evening, Charlotte waited by her front window, feeling nervous and excited. At exactly 7 o'clock, a blue pickup truck pulled up in front of her house. Marcus got out wearing dark jeans and a white button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked confident and handsome, and Charlotte felt her heart speed up as she watched him walk toward her door. She opened it before he could knock. Hi, she said. Hi yourself? Marcus smiled, looking her up and down. She'd chosen a sundress and sandals, trying to strike a balance between nice and casual. You look beautiful. Thank you, so do you. Marcus laughed. Men don't usually like being called beautiful. Fine, you look handsome and strong and... Charlotte caught herself before she said more. You look good. They walked to his truck, and Marcus opened the passenger door for her. The interior was clean but clearly well used, with an air freshener hanging from the rear view mirror and a coffee cup in the holder. Where are we going? Charlotte asked as Marcus started the engine. Patience. It's a surprise, remember? They drove through parts of the city Charlotte had never seen before. Narrow streets lined with 3-story houses, corner stores with hand-painted signs, kids playing on stoops even though it was getting dark. I love this neighborhood, Charlotte said, looking out the window. You do? It feels real, like people actually live here instead of just staying there between business trips. Marcus glanced at her with surprise. That's exactly what it is. They pulled up in front of a small building with a faded sign that read, Alvarez Family Restaurant. The windows glowed with warm yellow light, and Charlotte could smell garlic and cumin in the air. This is where we're having dinner? Charlotte asked. This is where I learned to cook, Marcus said. Chef Alvarez owns it with his wife. They've been here for 30 years. The restaurant was tiny, with maybe 8 tables covered in red and white checkered tablecloths. The walls were covered with family photos and certificates, and salsa music played softly in the background. A heavy-set man with graying hair came out from behind the counter and grabbed Marcus in a bear hug. Marcus, you don't call, you don't write, the man said in accented English. I've been working, chef. You know how it is? Marcus turned to Charlotte. Charlotte, this is Chef Javier Alvarez. Chef, this is Charlotte. Ah, the famous Charlotte. Chef Alvarez beamed at her. Marcus told me about you. Welcome, welcome. He led them to a corner table and immediately started bringing food without being asked. Plates of rice and beans, grilled chicken with lime, fresh tortillas, and vegetables Charlotte couldn't identify, but that smelled incredible. How does he know about me? Charlotte asked Marcus quietly. I might have mentioned you to him yesterday. What did you say? Marcus looked slightly embarrassed. That I was bringing someone special to dinner. Charlotte felt warmth spread through her chest. Special? Very special. They ate slowly, talking and laughing while Chef Alvarez stopped by their table every few minutes to make sure they had enough food. His wife, Maria, came out from the kitchen to meet Charlotte and insisted she try 3 different kinds of salsa. Marcus used to come here when he was in culinary school, Chef Alvarez told Charlotte during one of his visits. Best student I ever taught. Natural hands, you know? Why didn't you finish school? Charlotte asked Marcus after the chef had gone back to the kitchen. Marcus told her the story again, about Naomi and Malik, about choosing family over his dreams. But this time, Charlotte heard something different in his voice. Do you regret it? She asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Sometimes. But then I see Malik doing well in school, and Naomi happy in her job. And I think maybe dreams can change. Maybe the dream I had at 20 isn't the same as the dream I have now. What's your dream now? Still working on that part. After dinner, Chef Alvarez insisted they take home a bag of leftover food. He hugged Charlotte goodbye and whispered something in Spanish that made Marcus laugh. What did he say? Charlotte asked as they got back in the truck. He said you have good eyes, and that I should be careful not to mess this up. Good advice. They drove to a small park near the water where they could see the city lights reflected on the harbor. Marcus parked facing the water, and they sat quietly for a few minutes, listening to the gentle sound of waves against the dock. Thank you, Charlotte said. That was wonderful. The food, Chef Alvarez, everything. I wanted you to see where I come from, the real me, not just the guy in the hotel uniform. I'm glad you did. Charlotte turned in her seat to face him. Marcus, can I tell you something? Always. Graham came to see me last night. Marcus's expression darkened slightly. Your ex-fiancé? He thinks you're using me. He thinks you saw an opportunity with a rich girl, and you're taking advantage of my gratitude. What do you think? I think Graham is an idiot. Charlotte reached over and touched Marcus's hand. But I also think we need to be honest about what this is, what we're doing. Marcus turned his hand over so their palms were touching. What are we doing, Charlotte? I don't know, but I know I like you. Really like you. And not because you saved my life, but because of who you are. Because you make me laugh, and you listen when I talk, and you don't try to manage my image or fix my problems. I like you too, Marcus said quietly. More than I probably should. Why shouldn't you? Because your father's going to hate this. Because my supervisor is already watching me carefully. Because people are going to talk. Marcus squeezed her hand. Because I'm falling for you, and that scares the hell out of me. Charlotte felt her heart stop for a moment, then start beating very fast. It scares me too. So what do we do? We figure it out as we go. Charlotte smiled. Together. Marcus leaned across the space between them and kissed her softly. It was gentle and sweet and perfect, and Charlotte felt something settle into place inside her chest. When they broke apart, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. Charlotte, he said. Yeah. I need you to know something. I don't care about your money. I don't care about your father's business or your social connections or any of that. I care about you. I know. And if this gets complicated, when this gets complicated, I need you to remember that. Charlotte kissed him again, longer this time. I'll remember. As Marcus drove her home, Charlotte felt like she was floating. She was falling in love with Marcus Reed, and for the first time in her adult life, she didn't care who approved or disapproved. But as they pulled up to her townhouse, Charlotte noticed a familiar black car parked across the street. Graham was back, and this time, he had a camera. Don't get out, Charlotte said quickly as Marcus started to open his door. What's wrong? Graham's across the street. He has a camera. Marcus looked in his rear-view mirror and saw Graham sitting in his BMW with what looked like a professional camera with a long lens pointed at them. "Son of a bitch," Marcus muttered. "Just drive away," Charlotte said. "Don't give him what he wants." But it was too late. As Marcus started to pull away from the curb, camera flashes lit up the inside of the truck. Graham had gotten his pictures. "I'm sorry," Charlotte said as they drove around the block. "I should have warned you this might happen. It's not your fault." But Marcus's jaw was tight with anger. What's he planning to do with those photos? "I don't know. Nothing good." Marcus parked a few blocks away, and they sat in tense silence. "Charlotte," Marcus said finally, "maybe we should slow this down. Give things time to calm down." "You want to stop seeing me?" Charlotte's voice was small. "No, God, no! But I don't want you to get hurt because of me." "I'm a grown woman, Marcus. I can handle Graham Voss." "Can you handle your father when he sees those pictures?" Charlotte didn't have an answer for that. Edward Whitmore was not a man who liked surprises or public relations problems. "We'll figure it out," she said finally. Marcus walked her to her door through the back alley behind her townhouse, kissing her goodnight in the shadows where no cameras could reach them. But as Charlotte watched him drive away, she couldn't shake the feeling that Graham's pictures were going to change everything. She was right. The next morning, Charlotte woke up to 17 missed calls from her father and a text message with a link to a gossip blog. The headline read, "Whitmore Heiress and Mystery Man, Gold Digger or True Love?" Below it were 3 clear photos. Charlotte getting into Marcus's truck, the two of them kissing in the front seat, and Marcus walking her to her door. The article was brief but brutal. It identified Marcus as a hotel employee and speculated about his motives for pursuing one of Boston's wealthiest young women. It mentioned the allergic reaction at the gala and suggested that Marcus had positioned himself as Charlotte's hero in order to get close to her. Charlotte read the whole thing twice, her anger growing with each word. Then she called her father back. "Charlotte!" Edward's voice was cold. "We need to talk. Now. I'm on my way." Charlotte drove to her father's office, her hands shaking with rage. Not at the photos or even at the article, but at the fact that Graham had violated her privacy and tried to humiliate Marcus. She was done being careful, done being managed. It was time to choose what mattered most. Edward Whitmore's office occupied the entire top floor of the Whitmore building, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. On any other day, Charlotte might have paused to admire the view. Today, she walked straight to her father's desk, her jaw set with determination. "Sit down," Edward said without looking up from his computer screen. "I'd rather stand." Edward finally looked at her, and Charlotte saw something she'd never seen before in his eyes. Disappointment mixed with genuine concern. "Charlotte, I've been fielding calls all morning. Board members, business partners, friends. Everyone wants to know about these pictures. What do you tell them?" "That my daughter is going through a phase and it will be handled quietly." Charlotte felt heat rise in her cheeks. "A phase? What else would you call it? You've known this man for 2 weeks. You're making decisions based on gratitude and rebellion, not rational thought." "I'm making decisions based on my feelings." Edward stood and walked to the window, his back to Charlotte. "Your feelings don't exist in a vacuum. Every choice you make reflects on this family, on our business, on everything we've built. So I should live my entire life based on what's good for the business? You should live your life based on what's good for everyone you care about, including this Marcus Reed." Edward turned around. "Do you think these photos help him? Do you think having his personal life splashed across gossip blogs is good for his career?" Charlotte felt a stab of guilt. She hadn't thought about how the publicity might affect Marcus. "That's not his fault," she said. "No, it's yours. You're the one with the target on your back. You're the one these photographers follow." Edward's voice was gentle but firm. "Charlotte, I'm not saying Marcus is a bad person. I'm saying this situation is bad for both of you." Before Charlotte could respond, her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Need to see you. Something's happened." Charlotte's stomach dropped. "I have to go." "Charlotte, we're not finished talking about this." "Yes, we are." Charlotte headed for the door. "Dad, I love you, but my life is my choice." Charlotte found Marcus sitting on a bench in the same park where they'd had their first real conversation. But he looked different, tense, defeated. "What happened?" Charlotte asked, sitting beside him. Marcus handed her his phone. The screen showed an email from Ms. Keene. "Effective immediately. You are suspended without pay, pending an investigation into violation of company policies regarding guest relations." "Oh, Marcus." Charlotte felt sick. "I'm so sorry." "It gets worse. Chef Alvarez called this morning. The hotel's corporate office contacted him directly. They're reviewing his contract with the hotel." Charlotte stared at him. "They're going after Chef Alvarez because of us?" "They're sending a message. Stay away from the Whitmore family or face the consequences." Marcus took his phone back and put it in his pocket. "Charlotte, I think we need to step back from this." "What do you mean?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching families play on the playground. "I mean, maybe your father and my supervisor and everyone else is right. Maybe this is too complicated. You're breaking up with me because I got you suspended? I'm protecting both of us before this gets worse." Charlotte felt tears prick her eyes. "Marcus, look at me." He turned, and she could see the pain in his face. "Do you care about me?" she asked. "You know I do." "Then fight for this. Fight for us." "With what? I just lost my job, Charlotte. They can probably get me blacklisted from every decent hotel in the city. What am I supposed to fight with?" Charlotte reached for his hand. "With the truth, that we care about each other, that what we have is real." Marcus squeezed her hand but shook his head. "Real doesn't pay rent. Real doesn't help Naomi with Malik's school clothes. Real doesn't get Chef Alvarez his contract back. Money isn't everything. Easy to say when you have $50 million. The words hung in the air between them like a slap. Marcus immediately looked stricken. "I didn't mean that," he said quickly. But Charlotte had already pulled her hand away. "Yes, you did, and you're right. I don't know what it's like to worry about rent or jobs or any of the things you worry about, Charlotte. But I know what it's like to be lonely. I know what it's like to have people pretend to care about you when they really just want something. I know what it's like to feel like you're living someone else's life." Charlotte stood up. "And I know what it feels like when someone actually sees you. Really sees you." Marcus stood too. "That's not fair." "What's not fair?" "Making this about being seen and understood when the real world is crashing down around us." "The real world?" Charlotte's voice rose slightly. "Marcus, I don't care about the gossip or the photos or any of it. I care about you. And I care about you too much to watch you destroy your relationship with your family for me." They stood facing each other, both hurt and angry and scared. "So that's it?" Charlotte asked. "You're just giving up?" "I'm being realistic." Charlotte nodded slowly. "Fine, be realistic." She turned to walk away, then stopped. "But when you figure out that realistic isn't the same as right, you know where to find me." That evening, Charlotte sat in her living room with a glass of wine, staring at her phone. She'd started to call Marcus 6 different times and stopped herself each time. Her doorbell rang just after 8 o'clock. Charlotte opened it to find Naomi Reed standing on her doorstep, looking fierce and determined. "We need to talk," Naomi said. Charlotte stepped aside to let her in. Naomi looked around the townhouse, taking in the expensive furniture and artwork, but her expression didn't change. "My brother is an idiot," Naomi said without preamble. "He's protecting his family. He's protecting his pride." Naomi sat on the edge of the sofa. "Marcus has been taking care of everyone else since he was 16 years old. He doesn't know how to let someone take care of him." Charlotte sat across from her. "What do you want me to do about it?" "I want you to decide if you really care about him, or if this is just some kind of adventure for you." "Of course I care about him. Enough to fight for him? He doesn't want me to fight for him." Naomi smiled slightly. "Men never want us to fight for them. They think it makes them look weak. But sometimes they need us to fight anyway." Charlotte studied Naomi's face. "Why are you here? Really?" "Because I've never seen my brother look the way he looks when he talks about you. And because I've spent the last 2 days watching him pretend he's fine when he's clearly miserable." Naomi leaned forward. "And because Malik keeps asking when he's going to meet the lady who makes Uncle Marcus smile." Charlotte felt tears threaten again. "I don't know how to fix this." "Start with the hotel. Marcus loves his job, even if it's not his dream job. And Chef Alvarez is like a father to him. If they lose their livelihoods because of this, I'll talk to my father." "Will he listen?" Charlotte thought about her father's disappointed face, about the phone calls from board members and business partners. "I don't know, but I have to try." Naomi stood to leave, then paused. "Charlotte, Marcus told me what you said about being seen, about being lonely even when you're surrounded by people." "Yeah? I think maybe you two see each other because you both know what it's like to carry more than you should have to." After Naomi left, Charlotte sat in the quiet of her house and made a decision. She was going to fight for Marcus, whether he wanted her to or not. But first, she had to fight for herself. The next morning, Charlotte walked into her father's office unannounced. Edward was on a conference call, but he ended it quickly when he saw her face. "I need you to call off the hotel," Charlotte said. "Good morning to you too." "Dad, I'm serious. Marcus Reed and Chef Alvarez did nothing wrong. The hotel is punishing them to send me a message, and it needs to stop." Edward sat back in his chair. "The hotel makes its own personnel decisions. The hotel gets 60% of its corporate events from Whitmore Industries. Don't pretend you don't have influence. And if I make that call, what do I get in return?" Charlotte had been expecting this question. "You get your daughter back. The real one, not the one who's been sleepwalking through charity galas and board meetings for the last 5 years." "I don't understand." Charlotte sat down across from her father. "Dad, I've been trying to be the daughter you wanted instead of the person I am. And I'm tired of it." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm going to live my life on my own terms. I'm going to date who I want to date and make my own choices and stop asking permission for everything." Charlotte's voice was steady and calm. "It means you can either be part of my life as I really am, or you can have a relationship with the image you've created." Edward was quiet for a long time. "You really care about this young man." "I do. And if it doesn't work out, if he breaks your heart or disappoints you, then I'll deal with it, like an adult." Edward sighed and picked up his phone. "Margaret, get me James Morrison at the Grandview Hotel." 20 minutes later, Marcus Reed's suspension was lifted and Chef Alvarez's contract was secure. But Charlotte's real work was just beginning. Marcus was restocking linens in the hotel supply room when Miss Keene found him. "Reed, My office, please. Marcus followed her down the hallway, expecting the worst. Instead, Ms. Keene sat behind her desk and pulled out a folder. Your suspension has been lifted, she said without preamble. You'll be transferred to the kitchen staff, working directly under Chef Williams. It's a promotion, actually. Higher pay, better hours. Marcus stared at her. I don't understand. Corporate reviewed your case and decided that your actions during the medical emergency were exemplary. They want to utilize your culinary training more effectively. And Ms. Whitmore? Ms. Keene's expression didn't change. Company policy still applies regarding guest relations, but as a kitchen employee, you'll have minimal guest contact. Marcus nodded, still confused but grateful. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank whoever made some very important phone calls this morning. As Marcus left the office, his phone buzzed with a text from Charlotte. Can you meet me at the marina steps at 6, please, just to talk? Marcus stared at the message for a full minute before typing back. I'll be there. Charlotte was already waiting when Marcus arrived at the marina. She was sitting on the same steps where they'd shared their picnic, wearing jeans and a simple white t-shirt. She looked nervous and hopeful and beautiful. Hi, Marcus said, sitting down beside her. Hi, I heard about your transfer. Kitchen staff is what you wanted, right? How did you... Marcus stopped. You talked to your father. Among other things. They sat quietly for a moment, watching boats move slowly across the harbor. Charlotte, I owe you an apology, Marcus said finally. What I said yesterday about the money, that was unfair. It was honest. It was mean, and it wasn't really about the money. Charlotte turned to look at him. What was it about? Fear. I was scared that I wasn't good enough for you, so I made it about everything else. Your father, my job, the publicity. But really, I was just scared that you'd figure out I don't deserve you. Marcus, let me finish. You're smart and beautiful and kind. You could have anyone, and You're just what? Marcus struggled for words. I'm just a guy who left school to help his sister. I'm just a guy who works in a hotel kitchen and drives a pickup truck and lives in a one-bedroom apartment. Is that really what you think I care about? I don't know what you care about. That's the problem. Charlotte stood up and walked to the edge of the dock, looking out at the water. Do you want to know what I see when I look at you? Marcus joined her at the railing. Tell me. I see someone who gave up his dreams so his nephew could have a better life. I see someone who stays calm in a crisis and notices when people need help. I see someone who's kind to elderly waitresses and loyal to his friends and honest about his feelings even when it's hard. Charlotte turned to face him. I see someone who makes me want to be braver. Marcus felt something tight in his chest start to loosen. I don't care about your apartment or your truck or your job title, Charlotte continued. I care that you see me as Charlotte, not as the Whitmore heiress. I care that you make me laugh and that I feel safe with you, and that being with you feels like coming home. Charlotte, I'm not done. I also see someone who's stubborn and proud and who thinks he has to carry the world on his shoulders. Charlotte smiled. Someone who pushes people away when he gets scared. I don't want to push you away. Then don't. Marcus reached for her hands. I'm still scared. So am I. But I'm more scared of not trying than I am of failing. Marcus pulled her closer. What are we doing here, Charlotte? Really? We're choosing each other. Despite the complications and the gossip and the fact that people think we're crazy. Charlotte smiled. We're choosing love. Love? I love you, Marcus Reed. I love your kindness and your strength and the way you take care of everyone around you. I love that you see the best in people and that you make me want to be better." Charlotte took a breath. "And I love that you're brave enough to let me love you back." Marcus kissed her then, soft and sweet and full of promise. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "I love you too," he whispered. "God help me. I love you too." "So what happens now?" Marcus smiled, the first real smile Charlotte had seen from him in days. "Now we figure it out together, one day at a time." 3 months later, Charlotte sat at the kitchen table in Marcus's apartment, chopping vegetables while he stirred something that smelled incredible on the stove. Malik was at the counter, carefully measuring flour for cookies, while Naomi supervised from her spot at the table. "Uncle Marcus, is Charlotte going to be my aunt now?" Malik asked, looking up from his measuring cup. Charlotte and Marcus exchanged a look. They'd been together for 3 months, taking things slowly, building something real and lasting. "Maybe someday," Marcus said, "if Charlotte can put up with us for that long." "I think I can manage," Charlotte said, smiling. The front door opened, and Edward Whitmore walked in carrying a bag of groceries. "I brought the ice cream," he announced. "Grandpa Edward!" Malik ran to hug him. Charlotte watched her father lift Malik into a bear hug, still amazed by how naturally he'd taken to Marcus's family. After some initial awkwardness, Edward had decided that if Charlotte was determined to build a life with Marcus, he might as well get to know the people who were important to her. "How's the new restaurant coming along?" Edward asked Marcus. "Good. The permits should be approved next week. We're hoping to open by Christmas." 6 weeks earlier, Edward had surprised everyone by offering to back Marcus and Chef Alvarez in opening their own restaurant. An investment, he'd called it, nothing more. But Charlotte knew better. It was her father's way of saying he approved, that he understood Marcus was here to stay. "Dinner's ready," Marcus announced, and they all gathered around the small table. As they passed bowls and filled plates, Charlotte looked around at the faces of the people she loved. Malik telling a story about school, Naomi laughing at something Edward said, Marcus making sure everyone had enough food. This wasn't the life she'd planned. It was better. "What are you smiling about?" Marcus asked quietly. "Just this. All of it." Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. "Happy?" "Very happy." After dinner, they all walked to the small balcony off the kitchen. The sun was setting over the harbor, painting everything in shades of gold and pink. Charlotte leaned against Marcus's side, watching Malik point out constellations to her father, while Naomi took pictures on her phone. "So," Marcus said softly, "any regrets?" Charlotte thought about the gossip that had finally died down, about the friends who'd questioned her choices, about the society events she no longer attended. "None," she said firmly. "Not even about the terrible publicity? The family drama?" "Especially not about that." Charlotte smiled up at him. "It led me to you." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I love you, Charlotte Whitmore." "I love you too, Marcus Reed." And as the stars came out over Boston Harbor, Charlotte knew that sometimes the best love stories weren't about finding someone who fit perfectly into your existing life. Sometimes they were about finding someone worth building a completely new life with. Someone who saw you in the dark and stayed until morning came. Someone who chose love in the daylight without shame or fear. Someone who made you believe that ordinary moments could be extraordinary, and that the simplest choices, kindness, courage, trust, could change everything. In the end, that was enough. More than enough. It was everything.